with the man, the myth, the legend, Scott Dixon. Scott, thanks for joining us today. Congratulations. This is your 52nd career win, which ties Mario Andretti for the second most all-time. It is your 18th consecutive season, with a win, and your 20th season with a win. Congratulations. Tell us about your day.
Thank you. It was a very special day in so many ways. Obviously, the some of those numbers, it took a little while to get to. So, it's definitely been a bit of a dry spell for us. And, sometimes that puts on a lot of pressure, not just me, but, everybody on the team. And, today was just one of those days where I think the car was super fast all weekend. I think all the cars were across our group, and you could see with the 8 and the 10 had great recoveries, even though they had some issues in qualifying. And that's real teamwork. So for me to be a part of this team is what it's all about. I've been here. I think it was my 21st season with Chip. And all but one of those wins has been with him. So, very thankful for what he's done, what his team has done, and what everybody, puts into this team. The race itself was fairly straightforward, with how the cautions fell for us. My car was quite tricky to drive. We had some, previous races like Detroit where we had a lot of understeer once we'd kind of tested, did the warm-up in the morning, you get to the race and there was a lot of understeer. I think we overcorrected for that, and the car was super loose. So really tricky race for myself to look after the rear tires, and especially on restarts too, to try and get going, especially in traffic behind VK there for a little bit. But all in all, we came away with the win. We had a good clean pass, and to one on Herder, and that was it. So it was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah. So Mario is typically here with us, but isn't here this weekend. We did try to contact him to see if we could surprise you with him on the Zoom, and he wasn't available, but he did tweet. And he said, "Utmost respect for my friend Scott Dixon, and truly happy to congratulate him on 52 wins. Also congratulate his team because nobody does it alone. I hope this is just a step on your continuing journey. Well done." What does a statement like that mean to you?
Yeah, it means a lot. I love Mario. I love Mario for so many reasons. What he's done in the sport, what he's achieved, what he gives back to the sport, and I keep saying, I feel extremely lucky to have the likes of himself and AJ here most weekends. And even to sit and chat with these guys. Their stories are obviously the generations that they raced in, or the generation and time that they raced in was a lot different from now. And it means a lot to me, to even be mentioned in the same conversation as these greats. I never thought it was possible. So for me, it's a huge credit to obviously the team that I work with now, but also the team that I started with, whether it was my mom and dad to my brothers and sisters, all my family. To the Scott Dixon Motorsport Group, which were the founders of getting a group together to put forward money and enable me to get to where I am today. So as he stated, it's a team effort, but those words from Mario mean everything to me.
Awesome. We'll open it up for questions here in the room. Raise your hand. Also on the Zoom, please raise your hand and I'll get notified. We'll start with Steve Wittich over here.
Congratulations, Scott. What
Thanks.
A fantastic honor. Couple questions. Earlier this week, you were here on Friday, you were in here and you said, this week's been awkward for the team and amidst all the, kerfuffle. What does it say about the team in general and everybody, all the people involved, that you could have results like you did this weekend?
Yeah, it's not the first time. I think, it's never about the errors or anything, right? It's always about the comeback and how you get yourself back to the top. And as everybody knows, it's never one person. It's a whole team. And sometimes those letdowns can be strung by one person. But I think the way that everybody sticks together, pulls back and fights, that's what makes the difference. And that takes leadership. I think what Chip does. And whether it's his sometimes tough pep talks or whatever it is, he's in the business. This is the only business he's in, and all he wants to do is win. And that's why I love being a part of this team, because that filters all the way down to every single person in this team. So, yeah, it's been interesting. Not the most interesting time I've had at this team, that's for sure. There's many ups and downs through everybody's careers, but it's just a bit of a blip and a bit of noise at the moment. But it definitely shows the resilience of this team, and even today, how the 8 and 10 fought back, especially the 10. I haven't, seen how the race played out, but tremendous job for them, Alex and everybody to get back up, in the good points.
And you've got Emma and the girls here this weekend. I think having the Dixon family back together brought you a little bit extra mojo.
Yeah, it's great to have the family here. As always, it's a little mixed up sometimes which races they come to. I think they're coming to all the ones, maybe except for the last 2 now, which is great. I feel bad that Kit's not here. I'm sure he was at home yelling at the TV. He hasn't really made too many races yet. He's a bit of a wild man, so he's hard to contain at a race. Hopefully he can make it to the Indy Road Course, but he would have been super excited and can't wait to get back home tonight to see him. But always very special, to have Emma here and obviously Poppy and Tilly.
Awesome, thanks. We'll continue here in the room. We'll go right here to the Canadian News.
Hey there, Scott. John Chidley Hill from the Canadian Press. You've joked all week that this is essentially your home track because it's in the Commonwealth. So,
that's right.
How does it feel to win at home?
It always feels good to win at home. That's when you turn it up a little bit. It's just that extra bit. But honestly, I feel like I'm at home. The fans are super into it. It's just very special, I think, to be back here. I think sometimes it takes moments like obviously what we had. We weren't here to really appreciate, what we have as a sport and the people that love our sport, So definitely in the winner's circle today, that was quite apparent. You don't always get that at some of the races, and it's good to be back in Canada.
You've won here 4 times. What about this course appeals to you? Like, why do you have sustained success here?
I think you can see that, when the cars rolled off, all of us were very quick, so it's always a combination, but I particularly like it. It's a circuit that you can really attack. Some of the circuits now with some of the tires that we have, it's kind of, you almost have to drive at 8 tenths. This one, you can drive at, 12 tenths. You can always, overextend yourself and kind of find that little bit more speed, take, risk versus reward. And, I love circuits like that. I can't stand circuits with loads of runoff and, you kind of make a mistake and nothing happens. So, this one is very technical. It's very tricky. It's kind of like a bit of a bull ring. There's no real time to let up. So, again, I think it's a combo with the style and the way I drive to how good the team is.
All right, we'll continue here in the room. We'll go to the front.
Congratulations, Scott. Richard Monta from Post Media. That final restart, you got a real jump on him. And did you feel at that point that you had, first of all, was the car as good as it was at 80 point of the day? And secondly, did you feel you really had his number at that point, barring any further stoppages?
Yeah, it was tough with the restarts behind VK and Connor, just because the turbulence that you kind of get, and ultimately they were on pretty old tires as well, so where they can be quick or, having a little more temperature maybe in their tires, it's tricky to really understand the gap and where you need to go. So, I kind of was struggling on restarts, especially behind those guys, just with whatever balance issue you have, just kind of gets accentuated when you're behind somebody. So most of the day I really struggled with a loose car. The adjustments that we kind of made didn't really fix it, which was kind of, I don't know, once I get back with the team and see why that happened, but maybe we just didn't adjust enough. But where I'm going with that is just behind those two, that was tricky. And Colton was putting a lot of pressure on. He was doing a fantastic job. Where I was struggling, he was very good. So it made for a good race for him. And then ultimately, once we got clean air, I knew if we got a jump and I could fully attack without any sort of hindrance from the front, I knew we could kind of pull a gap.
All right, thank you. We'll take one more here in the room, and then we'll go to the Zoom. Tim Perini.
Thanks so much, Kate. Appreciate it. Congratulations, Scott. If you were to go back to, let's say, 21-year-old Scott Dixon and tell him that you would be on equal with Mario Andretti in terms of wins, what do you think that Scott Dixon would say?
Crazy. I remember the day winning my first race. The next day was a real struggle. I was probably had a few too many drinks that night. I don't think I was even 21 at that point, so that was a bit of a shock for the
I've
bar.
heard some stories.
The bar that I was in that night. but yeah, it's. I remember even having the conversation with Michael Andretti about getting to his number, and I was like, man, you're crazy. It's not going to happen. He's like, no, honestly, it's going to happen. It's going to happen really fast. And to me, that was kind of the first awareness of like, wow, this there's some numbers that are achievable. But I think when you look at even getting to the answers and then Mario, it's the sport can be super tricky. You can be in it 1 minute, you can be out the next, and I think having the consistency and the understanding with the team and having that common ground of trying to win, it becomes the light of it being more achievable comes. But yeah, honestly, at the age 20, man, no, I was trust me, I'd have other things on my mind at that point. I was just trying to keep my job.
Do you think about chasing down AJ's title now?
And I'll probably have to be racing well into my 50s for that one. It's hard. The competition's really tough right now. Even the luckiness of pulling strategies and getting those kind of, if you have a bad day and pull off a win from, weird cautions and things like that gets a lot trickier just because there's so many good teams now. You've got a field of 25 or 27 every weekend that they're going to be thinking the same alternate strategy. So, yeah, it's tough, but we'll keep going, man. Like if we can, get on a roll here and knock out some wins, anything's possible, but yeah, AJ's pretty safe, I think.
Thanks again, Scott. Appreciate it. Congratulations.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim. All right, we'll go to the Zoom, and it wouldn't be a Scott Dixon press conference if we didn't go all the way to New Zealand to our friend, David Turner. David, go ahead.
It makes it sound like I'm miles and miles away, Kate, but we'll get back soon. Dixie, well done today. Question I've got for you, when that period of the race where Daly and VK were in front of you and there was a lap or so there where you gave Daly a bit of a hard time, what says to Scott Dixon risk versus reward, knowing that they were on a different strategy?
Yeah, it's always hard because you're not sure exactly how much fuel they've been saving, right? So you don't know how far they can go. And I knew today with Honda and what we were able to achieve on fuel mileage. Even the longest stints were very easy for us. We could really extend. I trust Connor. I knew if I'd made a dive, he would have been super respectful. So that was definitely not an issue. It's tough, right? When you're trying to pass a car that's on a totally different strategy, but then also, use the mirrors a little bit to try and understand where your real threat is coming from. And I think Colton and his team did the right thing. They went flat out. They didn't worry. There was a pretty big number that we had to get. And my team's like, hey, you got to get this number. You got to get this number for the first 2 or 3 laps. And he just kept attacking, kept on overtake. And I knew at some point he had to give up because, he wasn't going to make it. I knew we could get some big numbers if we needed to, and he's good at it as well. But it was nice to see those cars peel off in front so we get some clear air. But I was actually surprised VK pitted when he did. I thought he might just try and keep going. But
yeah, it seemed that he would have pitted and then he stayed out. So I was just quite interested to get your take on it. And then just secondly, before I let you go to the others, that period at the end of the race with the bag on the track, did it just get in your eye line and then mistakenly go over the top of it?
It was weird. I saw it at the apex of 3 and I was like, where do I go here? Because I didn't want it to go into the duct. And then I was like, well, I'll go wide and go around it. And then as I was approaching the corner, I'm like, well, there's probably a lot of marbles out there. I probably don't want to do that either. So then when I turned, I'm like, oh, I'm going to run straight into it. And sure enough, and I don't know what it was, but it was super sticky. Obviously the tires are sticky at that time too, but it stuck, man. And that thing was just flapping. And then when I turned left into turn 5, it didn't want to turn. I'm like, oh my God, thank God this is the last lap. And then by the time I kind of got the exit of 6, it kind of found its way off the car. But I think there was a little bit still, trickling around on it. But yeah, I don't know what that was. And had it happened a few laps earlier, that could have been a bit of a game changer.
Oh, well, congratulations on today. And Kate, thanks very much for everything. We might be a long way away down here, but Kiwis are making some legends, and we've got one in the room with you right now.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, David, as always, for joining us. We'll take a couple more from the Zoom since we're there. We'll go to Bruce Martin from Forbes.
Hey, Scott, congratulations. Are you more relieved to finally get to win number 52 and tie Mario, because you've been chasing that for a while, or are you more relieved to get your first victory since May 1st, 2021?
Probably more relieved to just get a win, because there's definitely people that just keep talking about it, which gets a bit frustrating. It's not like anything changes. We're still, the same process and trying just as hard. But, again, I think in this sport, you always think about the close misses that you had, more than the actual victories. It can be a bit sad in some ways. But, I'm happy for myself and my family, but really happy for the team. They've deserved it. They've done a tremendous job this year, and we got the win, so that's all that matters at this point, I guess.
And you are probably the best driver in IndyCar history when it comes to saving fuel. I know you're not going to give up your secret, but what is it about your knack to be able to go fast and save fuel at the same time? Because it probably is a secret art.
I think days like today, just with how the balance of the car was, being super loose, it enables you to just carry so much speed at apex, and rolling that speed is where a lot of it comes from. That's where actually the trickier part for me during today was the push laps, because you really start to aggravate the end that's not really liking it, and the rear tires were starting to burn off pretty quickly. So today, fuel saving for me was definitely very well, I shouldn't say very easy, but much easier than normal, just because of the balance of the car. So there's a lot of things that go into how you achieve it, and unfortunately you have a lot of teammates during that period of time, and a lot of people get very good at it. So it's not the big difference that we used to have.
Well, congratulations, appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Bruce. Next, we'll go to Jack Benyon from the race.
Hey, Scott. We heard you say after the race that I think you said we needed this as you were kind of walking away from victory lane there, and just wondered how important this win was in the context of you've had some personnel moving around, and you've talked about some setup issues that you've had at various kind of races this year, despite having relatively good results across the season. How important was the win in all of that context?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a blah year. We've had loads of top fives, but they're not going to win you a championship. And we're in the business of winning, right? So I think that's where it gets frustrating. You see the close misses, and Indy's a good example. Indy's a good example for several years that it's a team effort. I made a big mistake this year, and definitely frustrating. And I think that's when it kind of you start to hit a bit of a bottom out, and understanding it's weird, the sport, when you're on a roll and you just think it happens and it's easy, and stuff like that, and you maybe don't really respect it as much. But the low points, and I've had these periods in my career, 04 and 05, just where you're like, wow, it's you got to be really respectful of the sport, and when it comes, you got to be extremely happy about it. So yeah, I don't know, it's never one thing, man. It's attention to detail on everything. It's hundreds of small details. But that's where this team, as we've seen, winning last year's championship with Alex, to winning the Indy 500 this year with Marcus, they're a tough group, and a group that works extremely hard, and just very lucky to be a part of this team.
You said it was a blah year, but I guess you've only had one race outside of the top 10 this season, which is still really impressive when you look at it. Does that give you a lot of confidence going into the second half of the season? Now you've kind of bagged this win, that you're on to I guess you're on a better trajectory at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's periods where you see, like, if you obviously do deep dives into a lot of things. Detroit could have been a lot different, Road America as well, and in Mid Ohio, it's just it's the same for everybody, right? That's what drives everyone, is just how crazy the competition is. And that's what I love, but it makes it damn hard to win. But that's how it should be, So yeah, it's always interesting, this process, and I think that's what IndyCar is just so competitive across the field. Teams, driver combos. It's really tough, but yeah, I don't know. You just got to keep your head down, I think, and obviously, if you keep knocking on that door, eventually it opens. I was hoping that it was going to open at Indy this year, but it just wasn't the case.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Jack. We'll take one more from the Zoom, and then we'll finish up here in the room. We'll go to Ben Johnston.
Thanks, Kate. Hey, Scott, congratulations. How much momentum does today's win give you going into like the the kind of long list of races that we've got coming up with the doubleheader in Iowa, Indy, and then of course Nashville?
Hopefully lots, but again, you're only as good as your last race, and next week we go into a double header, so it's a track that, Iowa, if we look at it, it's a track I wouldn't say we're particularly great at. Last year we had some good results with a second and a fifth, or last time we were there. So we had a decent test there. I felt like we made some good gains. We wanted to actually go back, but we were unable to just with because of tire supply. So it's going to be a big points weekend. I think the stretch that we're in, 5 races in 4 weeks is going to, put a pretty good pressing note, I think, on how the championship's going to flow. So I don't know, man. I don't want to predict anything in the sport. It's too tough to do that. All I know is that we'll be trying as hard as we possibly can.
Excellent. Well, congratulations, man, and speak to you soon.
Cheers. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, Kate.
We'll come back here to the room and we'll go to Nathan Brown from the Indianapolis Star.
Scott, first off, congratulations on your win today.
Thanks.
You mentioned earlier Chip's leadership that did a lot to hold this team together through, I think you phrased it as some awkwardness when we talked to you on Friday. Does that come through in specific, face-to-face meetings? Is it just kind of an understanding of what Chip expects in this organization? How did you see your team get through this from when you guys arrived here Thursday and Friday to finish in first, fifth, and sixth today?
Yeah, I think it's sometimes it makes you just put your head down a little bit more and work a bit harder too. Not that we don't always, but maybe it when reactions like that happen, I think it enables a lot of people to get a better focus. So I think Chip was extremely calm this week. And I think that's real leadership. I think somebody's kind of throwing their toys out of their cot and kind of running around. That's going to be a different reaction for everybody to see. But he's very calm, and I think just the pep talk that he gave everybody before the race, is his typical speech of doing the obvious things right, and looking after your teammates, and bringing up the trickiness of, say, the pit lane that we have here. But that everybody in our team had a chance to win today. There's a strategy for everybody to win, and it was just it was really nice. It was the 9 car. It was good for him. It's good for the 9 car on the championship. But then again, the rest of the team did a hell of a job to rebound from pretty crazy starting position, especially on the 10 side, to keep pushing. So I think it was a great calmness and a sternness that he had this weekend that kind of clears out the noise that's out there.
All right, we'll go down here to the young man in the front.
Well, Scott, congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
Something that I always look to yourself as is you've been in the sport for a good long time, and you've had a lot of I don't know if I can call them dreams, but you've had a lot of ambitions and dreams that you've achieved now after being in the sport for such a long time. And now a lot of active drivers, but especially people from my generation now are looking up to you and looking at what you have accomplished. So what kind of message would you like to say to my generation, for people like me that want to get into racing, that have these ambitions, but they just I guess they don't have that that push to really go and chase it? What message would you have for a lot of that youth?
Yeah, thanks for your kind words. I don't know. You've got to have that drive. I think that's a big part of it. You got to have a relentlessness, I think, to your work ethic, deep dive. I think the biggest thing is probably always ask questions. Always ask how you can do things better. There's and especially once you get to the level that it is now, there's so many smart people in the room that can guide you. The worst thing I think you can ever think is that you know everything. That's probably the best advice I could get. Even being in IndyCar racing for 20 plus years, I'm learning every day, man, and it doesn't stop. It's continuous. So it's hard work. I guess that's the biggest thing. You got to be committed, and you got to be committed for everybody that's involved. But you got to get after it.
Great. All right, we'll finish up with Krista Hardy.
Scott, we last raced here in 2019. from what you can remember from that weekend, how did the crowd and the extracurricular stuff outside the race and everything with promotion, everything like that, what did this year, all that remind you of 2019? Was it as big? Was the crowd down from 2019? What are your thoughts on everything surrounding the race?
Yeah, I think even from Friday, it looked like they needed more grandstands, man. Especially in pit road, everything was full, on a Friday, which is crazy. So, I think it just shows the love for our sport in Canada, and it shows that we probably should be racing at more venues here. I miss the days of racing here, 3 times a year, whether it was Edmonton or Vancouver or Toronto, but I think there's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of fans for our sport. They're very knowledgeable. They know all the drivers. They're wearing all the team kit. It's cool to see. And I think we should race here more. I guess is probably the easiest answer there.
The manufacturer-sponsored races, Chevy, Honda. Chevy's won all of them except for this one. What does it mean? What do you think it means to Honda to have a Honda engine car win their race?
It's everything. That's it's cool to win a home race. I think what Honda do one for the sport. Whether it's entitlement of these these but obviously we're a Honda team. We're Honda thick all the way through. With all our programs, they're a tremendous partner. For me, so it gives me huge pride to win at a race like this. A big win for me. With the numbers, but to win at a Honda race, home track of Toronto Commonwealth. But I think it's very important. I think to have the support that we do from our manufacturers. And of course, without them, we wouldn't have been able to win today.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you, everyone, for a wonderful return to Toronto, and we'll see some of you next week for the Hy-Vee IndyCar weekend in Iowa.
Cool.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks,
you
everyone.
Can stay put. I have more.